Michael J. Fox is back for another Stuart Little, and this time, not awesome. It's fudging terrible. The animation looks like it's done by a kindergartner's TV show channel animation studio. Terrible movie. The only good thing is Michael J. Fox, Hugh Laurie, and Jenna Davis.
Back again.
All the big shot actors of Stuart Little, except for Snowbell's voice actor, are all back in this new installment, Stuart Little 3, now on GameCube and PS2.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
To another experiment where we analyze movies and their cinematic universes, how each sequel relates to one another using our device, the Speakuel. Welcome back, everybody. We are in the final installment of the Stuart Little saga here.
If you
I'm
don't
so excited.
include the series, if you don't include the animated series, but
I don't.
that might be in a different canon. Who knows? Movie canon and TV canon, it's a thing.
We're just doing movies here. No TV, no nothing about that. You know, messes with the control group. Anyway.
Yeah. Stuart Little 3, Call of the Wild.
Very important for the subtitle here, which I don't think the other two movies had subtitles.
They do not. They are just Stuart Little and Stuart Little 2. And they stand on their own without the help of a title. But some sequels sometimes get subtitles. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. That's a video. That's another video game that has like a subtitle.
I have to say, the animation in this movie, I'm sure it will come to no surprise to anybody that this like direct-to-DVD sequel does not look very good, and it's not even like, oh, it's all right, it's not sure DreamWorks, Disney, Pixar or whatever, but it's also like very bad.
Well, I mean, it's your basic like CG animation on a budget with supplemented mocap animation, which, I mean, it's serviceable, but you can see where the budget went, on those returning actors. Michael J. Fox, Hugh Laurie, and Jenna Davis, they don't come cheap.
They certainly
Yeah,
don't.
I'm sorry, Stuart Little 3, but it's funny how, like, this was probably the only way that Stuart Little 3 could have ever been made, because, like, I assume that nobody cared enough to just, actually hire these actors and have them actually, act, right? Like, to actually, be there and, have to, participate in a movie, the filming of a movie. They just had to, record some lines.
They just had to go to a studio for a day, maybe 2 days, to record some lines.
Record this hour-long fucking movie, they're, special guest starring on.
I think what's most important to start when discussing this movie is new characters, because there's quite a lot, I would say.
We get a lot of diversity in the cast in this one.
We even have a new setting, because we've kind of done what we can in New York, surprisingly. Just two movies.
We've had summer in New York. We've had winter in New York. It's time to go to the wild.
We didn't even have winter in New York.
Yes, we did. It was snowy in the first one.
The first movie feels cold. It feels so cold. Rene.
It wasn't snowy at all.
It wasn't.
I think
it was. They were wearing little coats when they were going to search for Stuart. It was cold.
Did you see that?
I guess it was cold, but it wasn't snowy.
All those movies all those scenes where they were outside, you must admit that there was a bit of a blue tint, implying that it was a bit cold outside. A bit overcast.
Well, where are we now, Rene, huh? What's more exciting than New York?
Yeah, where the fuck could we go?
Well, Stuart Little, as we know, has already tested his limits in the urbane environment, so why not the rural environment of the forest, the wild, Call of the Wild, that's the subtitle, you see. Stuart Little and his family are going on a camping trip. They're gonna be roughing it in the wild in a luxurious little log cabin in the wild. That's rough.
Yeah, I guess they had like a second little home in the woods that we're just now learning about, and they pull upon it, and like one of those little like metal weather vane things on top of the roof falls over to show like, wow, this isn't like their normal nice house, but it still looks very nice.
The thing is, it is a house out on some what I would assume is private property, and it is a large house out by the lake, which also increases the property value. And we also have to take into account, like, you know, Mrs. Little, she had to fix it up a bit, but she also had all of those tools on hand, so nothing's a problem for them. Just like want to remind everybody, Littles are in fact very well off still.
I love the consistent, like, the movies trying to convince us that they're like a middling, like middle class or like lower class family that doesn't have everything, you know, but they're all right with what they have. But what they have, like as we've seen in this movie, is pretty dang opulent.
It's pretty good.
It's like you know what, you know, us littles, we're really like we like to be kind of reserved with ourselves. We settle for what we got, you know. Us littles we're not known for our decadence.
Let's sit down in our newly painted kitchen and have this 3-course meal.
This beautiful rural landscape out in the woods by the lake.
Well, Stuart here in the wild, he wants to join kind of, what are they called, Lake Scouts or something?
Yeah. they're Lake Scouts.
And we get introduced to a girl named Brooke, who is Georgie's love interest, I guess.
Yeah,
it's Georgie's who cares. It's B plot. It's B plot nonsense that don't need to be there.
It's C plot nonsense.
C plot, yeah.
That's like, you know, I guess George was important in the last two movies, sort of. Like, he kind of fell off by the wayside in the second movie, but this third movie, it's like he's just irrelevant. I mean, probably for the better, since there's not really much you can do with George. You've already had him, like, trying to warm up to Stuart. You've had him, like, you know, being like a brother to him, like, trying to cover for him, but, like, still not being sure of him. And now he's just, like, utterly indifferent towards Stuart. He doesn't even, like, recognize his existence. Just the existence of his game.
His video game.
Yeah, he's a gamer, Georgie. The graphics are better up here, Georgie. But yeah, Stuart is just kind of thrown by the wayside in Georgie's eyes, and there's just like, I don't know, he gets kind of left behind a lot in this movie, literally.
Yeah, so in the Lake Scouts, there's also a troop master, I guess, who is, what's his name, Bickle?
Yeah,
and
Bickle.
He's absolutely the worst character character in this movie.
He's weird, he's awful, and like he's
Who
just
let him be in charge of all these children?
He is utterly inept at his job. He is judgmental of all the kids, and he can't even lead them in a good way. It's got to be taken to Hugh Laurie Little to be an actual leader to these actual scoutmaster to these children.
This inept shithead is just so like I don't know how it's possible that he's in the position that he's in right now. Did he have something on his resume that was like what could possibly get him here?
He's horrible to Stuart also. He's constantly making fun of, there's the scenes where the group of children tease Stuart, and then he does it too.
Yeah, he joins in on it. Hugh Laurie is the only person here who is willing to stand up for his son. Thank God, at least, I guess, for that, right?
So we have Brooke, we have Bickle, and then we have quite possibly the best character in the movie, Rico.
Yeah, Rico is he's just the king of this movie, I'd say. He's a character who is a skunk, and he's got a genuine personality about him, I'd say.
Now, I'll be honest here. This is my first time watching this movie, so I had no expectations as to what could happen. And
it might as well be me and Lucy's first time watching as well.
Because as I was watching it, at first, I saw this character, I saw his design, and I was like, okay, this is going to be the awful, unbearable Sid the Sloth character that I'm gonna hate watching with every fiber of my being. But then he kind of warms up to you in the movie throughout it, because he's just a genuine character who, in the beginning of the movie, he's a big jerk, right? Who's sniveling, conniving. He's working.
Con man.
Yeah, he's a con man working for this great entity in the woods, as all the other wood animals are.
Because
the beast.
Because of the
beast.
Because in this movie we get a lot of glimpses into the social structure of animals that live just out in the wilderness, and it's kind of interesting, this weird hierarchy, because all of the animals are they're intelligent, all of them can speak to one another and communicate, so they're all sapient creatures. So there's this weird the creatures of the forest bring the beast the bounty. It's the beast, it's they have a fucking king system. It's weird. Stuart could have ended up like this if he wasn't a city rat.
But, this is the, where, Rico comes in, where he is utterly inept at, giving offerings to the beast. So, through the through line of this narrative is him working in the shadows, trying to gain offerings for the beast, trying not to die by its hand.
Yeah, the beast is shown in silhouette form a lot. You could see a hand, or I guess I should say a paw,
a claw,
or a little shadow, and you can hear a grumbling. You get a close up of the eye, but they never show the beast until the last, I want to say 20 minutes of the movie. And I don't know if they're trying to make it seem more mystical or more fantastical, but it's very obviously a mountain lion. A big cat.
No, I feel because at the beginning of this movie, there's a sort of a dream sequence where Stuart is well, it's not a dream sequence, it's actually happening. But it's one of Stuart pretending to have an encounter with a ferocious bear, but it's actually a model in their little basement town that they have set up. And my thoughts at first were, oh, they're trying to hide the fact that it's a lion because they want us to think like, oh, it might be a bear. So when we see it, we're surprised. But it's not surprising at all because they didn't hide it very well.
This is very obviously a lion.
It's very obviously a lion, but I like to think that might be the story behind it.
So our beast is our next character, these all elements come together where Brooke introduces the concept of the beast as like some legendary tale, as Stuart is trying to like. He's trying to earn his like yellow handkerchief, because in the scout system it goes like you start as a red and then you go blue and then you get yellow for gold, I guess, and that means you're good.
They represent all the 3 Pikmin types.
And the funny thing is I didn't mention this while we were watching it, but because I noticed, spoiler alert, at the end, Stuart does an amazing thing and he finally gets his gold handkerchief, and they have to like tear off a little piece of like a bigger one to like tie it around him. And I was like, yeah, because obviously they didn't, have a little one prepared for him, because they didn't know he was going to join the scout troops until like they were already all in the woods and they just like stumbled across the scouts. But then I looked at Stuart and I said, hey, wait a minute, he's wearing a tiny little scout's uniform.
Yeah.
And it's not even like he got it in the city, because while they were driving to the camp, he was holding out a brochure like, hey, have y'all heard of these scouts? I want to join them. Me and Georgie should join them.
Well,
they didn't know.
The obvious answer to that, Lucy, is before they arrived, they figured, oh, let's tailor Stuart a cute little scout uniform, because there's a place for, kids around here. Like,
but
Stuart
the mother didn't want him to join the scouts because, we have to keep following the narrative of the second movie in that Stuart's too small to do anything.
You're right. His mother is unsupportive, so that doesn't check out. Where do you fucking get his little... I mean, he must have already had a little outfit like that. It's just like, yeah, this is I get to use my little adventure outfit. Wow, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna rough it.
He's in like a tiny canoe and he gets attacked by a fish, which is very large for him because he is a small mouse, and he's freaking out and obviously very scared, and he's like, oh my god, it was like a shark, oh my god, and everybody, including the camp counselor guy, like Bickle, he makes fun of him relentlessly for it, and even past the point where like the kids stop making jokes about him seeing a shark. The Scoutmaster is still making jokes about him seeing a shark, way after the fact.
I mentioned this to y'all while we were watching the movie, but I just want to express it to everybody listening. It's so funny how Stuart Little gets progressively more and more pathetic as the series goes along, and from the first movie down, there's just a decline in how much he's able to influence people, humans and stuff, and actually be charming towards them. Over that time, he just ends up getting kind of just shit on and forgotten, and it's really funny. But there's also a beauty in it, because him falling this low gives him so many opportunities to climb right back up. And I love that, because we get to see him grow a lot in this movie, because he meets a friend. Somebody isn't like him, the skunk Rico.
It's kind of surprising how they, you would think, with the common themes of, conning in these movies, you wouldn't think that, they would form, a genuine relationship with each other being such con men, but there's something there that's hey, this is nice. This little skunk Rico, he's never had a friend because he's a skunk, and also more importantly a jerk to people, but Stuart likes him. He looks up to him, and then Stuart likes him because he's a small wilderness guy who can teach him stuff, a mentor for the wild. And
like, we're pretty different, but I think we could learn a lot from each other.
And so, like, throughout the movie, it's a thing where it's the narrative of Stuart trying to get better at facing the wild, at, like, getting, like, that sense of adventure, which, I mean, that was kind of the plot of the second movie, but let's overlook that, shall we?
Let's just forget about that.
He can do it again, but this time with the
this time in the wild.
And animated. Full motion animation. I mean, he was animated kind of before in the other movies, but forget that too. This is kind of like a low poly Stuart Little.
I need to talk about the dinner scene where Stuart decides to invite Rico, the skunk, over. Where he invites him over to dinner, and I've never been more convinced that the family is just straight up ignoring Snowbell whenever Snowbell
I feel like we could talk about the implications and just the feeling, the tone, everything about the scene for like 30 minutes. It's just
it's Stuart's like, oh, hey, Mom and Dad, I want to introduce you to my friend Rico. And like a skunk, they shows them it's a skunk, and the parents are like, a little like surprised, but they're trying to be polite about it. But it's more so because he's a skunk and he stinks. So he's like sitting at the dinner table and he has really bad table manners. And they ask Stuart like, oh, where did you and Rico meet? And then Rico's like, oh, wait, I'll explain it, Stuart. And then he starts like eating as he's talking, so it just comes out as like a mumbled mess, and that's the joke. But the parents, like, there's no indication of whether the parents like acknowledge that he is speaking words, or if they're hearing like, I don't know what sounds. Yes, they're hearing that.
Like, they just hear like a fucking rabid animal just like chattering in front of.
But this at least confirms that if even if they can't understand Rico, they could understand Margalo, first of all, in the second movie. And then even if they couldn't understand Rico, they're aware that Stuart can understand animals.
So
and they just don't care.
This is less like animals being less like intelligent or like sapient than other animals, and more so just like a barrier of communication. Like, them ignoring like an animal like Rico, if he's like, able to communicate with Stuart, is just kind of like, that would be like, that's just like a language barrier, really. It's like, oh yeah, Stuart can communicate between the two, so the same thing applies to Snowbell, but they never ask the question, can our cat talk? Is our cat a human? Is our cat a human-minded cat? Like, Stuart is a human-minded mouse.
Well, I think that's the thing, is because I think they're just predisposed to not thinking about that, to just not acknowledging these animals as people. And, that's probably a bit on Stuart as well, that attitude, which is why they kind of, like, disregard him sometimes. They don't, like, meet his needs sometimes, because he's just a little funny animal they dress up as a little son. But, like, we know that, like, all the animals, like, talk and, like, have, like, intelligence and speak to one another. Even the beast.
Hierarchy, a fucking forest, that there's a council. There's a fucking council of rabbits and squirrels. They offer their pile to Hopper.
The beast, not Hopper. This is the wrong movie.
Wrong movie.
But
that movie got no sequels.
The Beast, which I guess it's easy to just call it the Beast because that's like a fine enough name. But the Mountain Lion, because it's just a mountain lion. They try to she speaks and she has like a personality in that movie, which really caught me off guard for some reason.
We were watching the movie and because from to this point the beast has snarled, growled, stood in the corners in the shadows.
I think 40 minutes in.
Rico tricks Snowbell into going to the beast because Rico owes the beast like offerings, and so he's like, well, I'll just give it Snowbell, and it's like, the betraying moment. And the beast just takes Snowbell back to her like lair on top of a waterfall, and like she started talking, and Rene like gasped.
Rene was completely...
We're not expecting...
yeah, I think it's really important to, like, note some of Renee's reactions to, like, the bits of Stuart Little, because it's nice to, like, view a movie again through, like, fresh eyes, even though it was kind of fresh the second time as well. It's very strange, like, 40 minutes into, like, an hour-long movie for a character that has been, like,
a monster,
like a fucking monster, grabbing Snowbell, and Snowbell's like, please don't eat me, I don't taste good, and then she's like, I'm not going to eat you. Like a fucking Disney villain. like very cunning sounding, and sounds kind of like a bastard.
If we're like doing themes for this movie, the first one obviously is about like trying to belong to a family, belonging and being a fish out of water. Second movie is about being underestimated, for your abilities, and this one has that too, but I think more so it's not really being underestimated, but also just like there's more than you let on, the reality defies the expectations. We have Rico, who is a skunk, who's also a jerk, but once you get to know him and like once you befriend him, he's actually a pretty stand-up guy who would like stand up for his friends. Stuart, who is like a little mouse who you wouldn't think could be brave and cunning, is both of those things and manages to triumph. And this fucking beast who just talks and ends up being more than just a wild animal. I think there's a through line there.
There's a society that lurks within the forest. I can't stop thinking about the society and the way things work around the forest. That we see like lines form at the base. Like we see like little rabbits and squirrels gather their nuts and berries and stand in like a line at like the fucking throne of the beast or something, just like where the beast is, and they're all just like scared of her, and I guess she eats like a bunch of berries and nuts and stuff usually.
That can't be good for her. She's a big mountain lion.
She's a big mountain lion that eats pizza and big hunks of cartoon cheese. Because that's some stuff that you see in her big pile of treats that Snowbell starts like getting stuff from. Is that there's fucking pizza and big hunks of like, ooh, cheese to meet you, cheese.
She throws Snowbell in like a hole, and she wants to, make him bigger so she wants to make him a rug, yeah. And he's like, oh, you have to fatten me up because he wants to live longer. So she throws him in a hole and like throws down like a pile of like worms and bugs. Like, lady, could you not? That's not gonna work. You just give him like a big piece of that cheese out of that giant mountain of food you have.
Well, the truth is that she would be making him more muscular.
With cheese?
No, would be
with
making
the worms
him,
and bugs and stuff.
With the worms and bugs, those are those are protein rich. So what Snowbell could do is, like, if he ate enough of that, he could get really strong, and he could climb out of the hole, and he could fight the beast. He could fight the beast and win. And then be like, come on, Stuart, I've conquered my fears. I'm no longer afraid.
Snowbell has had very little character growth throughout the entire series.
He hasn't. I don't think I don't think a kitty like him ever gets character growth ever.
You know what? I think even more. I think he got something that we rarely see, which was like character shrinkage, where
He gets more and more cowardly.
and I think that's beautiful, honestly. Character growth doesn't need to just be a straight line to like being a better person. You could just be like a big coward, scaredy pants, and that's fine. I personally loved like the direction from like foreboding antagonist in the first movie to just sniveling little coward now.
Gets stuck in a paint can, thrown in a hole. Has to be told how to save himself by a little mouse.
We haven't really talked about like his like through line story here though, have we though?
What, Stuart's or Snowbell's?
Snowbell's, like his little B plot with Monty.
Monty with his boyfriend.
With his boyfriend Monty that he doesn't treat right. Where, well, basically, you know, they had to go on the trip and, like, you know, all the talk of the beast like was scaring Snowbell, so he let Monty come along as protection. But then Monty just leaves halfway through the movie because there isn't any more cat food for him there. So, like, Snowbell was alone and ripe for getting caught by the beast thanks to Rico's trickery.
If only he had treated Monty better and given him some real food and love, he wouldn't have lost his protector.
God, his guardian. The one that lurks beneath the porch and protects the king. The one, the hero hidden in the shadows, serving from the shadows, protecting our king, Snowbell.
What are we doing here? What are you doing?
I'm setting up some like epicness to this like tale
to the Snowbell Monty timeline.
Yeah, for the Snowbell Monty like duo. Like maybe someday we'll get a Stuart Little 4. And
no.
And maybe someday we'll get a Stuart Little 4. And maybe
no.
All right.
Listen, we gotta reserve the epicness for like Stuart now, and it's like for the climax where Stuart manages to rescue Snowbell, like in the cave. The liar is revealed with Enrico, like his trusted mentor that he gave marshmallows to and let him eat pie in his cabin with his family.
The liar is revealed DVD scene selection name.
When you open up the Stuart Little 3 DVD and you go to scene selection and you hover over the little box that has Rico and Stuart looking sad at each other, it just says liar reveal.
Yeah, and the whole time there's music playing that's just like
Well, I mean, okay, let's talk about the music. Because, like, it's a very different, like, score than, like, 1 and 2. I mean, like
similarity
1 and 2,
two
like, had a bit more, like, you know, standard, like, orchestral, like, action-y, like, score to it. But it still had that whimsy of the first movie. This soundtrack doesn't really have that whimsy, you know? It doesn't have the, like, those, like, really high, like, unbearable strings or anything. It
feels kind of reserved, sort of like an apple and onion cartoon.
No,
sort of reserved, like, you know, like.
No,
like
let Rene finish.
Okay.
I think it's more like, you know, it's got some bite to it. You know, it's got some mystery to it. You know, they got like some vibraphone in there. I think, you know, it's kind of like. Ooh, like tremolo strings going. It sets up a nice mood, I think, more than the visuals do. Where it makes things more dramatic and more mysterious and stuff. Unless you have Rico, then you have like, you know, a silly like sort of bassoon music or something.
Stuart Little, Breath of the Wild. With this game, we tried to capture, you know, like all the little minute sounds that you hear, like in the forest, So, like, when you're controlling Stuart, when you're walking him through the grass, you actually hear Margalo speaking in the treetops.
You can hear her whispered voice.
You can hear her whispering, and there are all sorts of creatures. Ugh.
Margot's not in this movie, by the way.
Margot's not in this movie. It'd be cool.
Well, what can we?
Be cool if she showed up, kind of like how Piccolo shows up at the end of the Dragon Ball movies.
What can we glean from? Let's just look at it as a whole.
As a whole,
Stuart Little is a story, I think, in my view, about a little man who opens his heart to a family and then realizes that maybe it's not so cracked up to be. Maybe there are a lot of difficulties and there isn't just one happily ever after. You have to keep fighting for it and you have to always be proving yourself. But the people who matter, like Rico and Margalo, maybe that's enough. Maybe you don't need Georgie's approval anymore. Because largely by the third movie, he's not begging Georgie to pay attention to him anymore. He's like, you know what, Georgie, you kind of suck. I'm going to go save Snowbell, and I don't need anybody but my friends who actually care about me and actually notice me. And that's what I think Stuart Little's about.
I actually really agree with that. Like, the story of sort of like, as we've all said a million times before, a con man, but a story of a man who got into this family looking for their riches and wealth and finding something else. What he finds is kind of a different part of himself that really appreciates like others that are like him, you know? Other freaks, other geeks, other like animal folks and little birds and Snowbell. These are the people that matter most to him. These are the guys that Stuart Little looks at and says, those are my family.
Well, Rene, what do you think Stuart Little's about?
Well, I think it was funny that you were all saying that because, like, the themes of, like, you know, being othered and stuff, that's definitely present in the first one and still carries through the other movies. It's funny that the friendships that Stuart forges in these like animal friends kind of reinforces how he really doesn't fit in with the Littles, and they don't really do much to accommodate and ameliorate that. I mean, they accommodate him somewhat, but they kind of really just forget him a lot of the time and leave him to his own little like adventures like in the wild and whatever. I mean, they're concerned about him, but they often forget about him.
Like, they are concerned, but only after they spend a long amount of time not giving a shit where he is. Like, just being completely fucking oblivious to where their son is. Because there's a moment in this movie where the mountain lion is just like, you know, Stuart Little, it's the final confrontation, and Stuart Little leaves like a little note being like, thanks, George, you were a great brother. I might not come back from this adventure. And like, for whatever reason, they decide we need to keep this letter from being seen by the family in this moment. So there's just a long time that they go where this letter is just like being transferred as like a literal piece of trash from person to person until eventually somebody reads it.
Oh yeah, Martha, the little baby who's like nothing in this movie.
It's a little fucking accessory baby.
I think the reason why is because they wanted Stuart to not have any help from like the human characters in his big confrontation, but at the same time, I am gonna say it's really shitty that they didn't give Stuart any like upgrade in his handkerchief. Like, they didn't give him blue. in any of the things he did, even though he was absolutely trying his best, and the reason he was failing is because he's literally a mouse, and like they didn't accommodate him or make a challenge, specifically for him so that he could like earn that honor. They just were like, oh, you have to do it this way, Stuart, the human way. And then it took him fucking capturing and tying up a big ass mountain lion in this complicated rope trap thing for them to be like, wow, Stuart, I guess you are pretty cool. Like, why does he have to go that far? It's impossible for him.
Like, the expectations set for him, a mouse, are like way higher than those of any person. Like, these kids just like, in an evening, it's just like, alright, it's the end of the day, it's time for your upgrade. And like, it's like, not you, Stuart, though. We need to keep you down there so the kids have somebody to punch down at so they can feel better about their own accomplishments. Sorry, Stuart, you're everybody's punching bag in this one.
It's like I was gonna say earlier that like the first movie sets it up so that you want to see Stuart belong to this family, really see him become a little, but especially in this third movie, that like message of being a little high, little ho. They only say that once even in this movie. It rings so hollow because Stuart's like real like companionship is in the animal friends he's made and like the bonds he's made himself rather than this like human family that like got him on a lark and just do not do stuff for him. It's the found family. That's really what it's about.
And that's what Stuart Little is all about.
Well, I think the sun's coming up.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty dry. I didn't wear my suit today for some reason.
Oh no, why not?
Well,
Don't you need that to live?
Oh no, that's a common misconception. It's actually more of a comfort thing. I can survive out of it for about, like an hour, but
wait, how long has it been?
Oh no.
Well, let's see. Whew. Oh jeez. I need to go. I need to get back out of here. I'm sorry, y'all.
Well, I guess we'll meet when the Speakuel calls for us again. I wonder what they'll choose for us next time.
Hold on, is that a cup of water on the table? Let me just check. Ah!
Are you gonna...
Liquid. H2O.
Well, whatever we have next, I hope it's not another tiny rodent movie.
Well,
God, that would be... Oh, wait, hold on. Did you hear that the Speakuel's printing something out? Let me just... Oh no.
Y'all ready to go? Y'all ready to get shipwrecked?
Well, everybody, thanks for listening in to the latest Speakuel podcast. I've been Rene.
I'm Lucy.
I've been your Gert.
I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.